How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling. Guest today will be Jeff Marek of Live Audio Wrestling, so this will be a fun show. Probably Canada's leading authority on pro wrestling. And, of course, we have Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 here tonight. And, Brian, are you tired?
Yes, I am, actually. How did you know that?
I just figured, well, Tuesday night, Wednesdays, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know it's hard for you as it's going to be for me, and I was up pretty late last night finishing up the issue, so. Anything as far as in the issue?
Just sort of a big, long thing. I started doing the story on WCW, and I was just, basically writing about what's going on. And it's like, throughout the night, it's like, I didn't even know what to write. Do I write it's more likely that it's going to be shut down? Do I write it's more likely that it's not going to be shut down? And it's like, I ended up writing about both.
Well, it's going to be one or the other. It's going to be shut down temporarily one way or the other.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty confident you can say that.
The conclusion I came to was it's going to be shut down, and it's either going to be a transitional period or permanent. And that actually revealed absolutely no news whatsoever, but it was something to write about. So did a big, long thing on that, and Lionel Tate, just a bunch of stuff. And
the one thing in the Lionel Tate thing that I read last week that got very little publicity is, you remember that the whole thing about how we were always discussing whether like the injuries that he gave this girl could have been from wrestling moves or not from wrestling moves?
Yeah.
Okay. That's such a weird, it's like a weird thing because it's like pretty much anything can be constituted as a wrestling move that you would do to inflict bodily harm on someone else.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
You know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily, it doesn't say he learned it from wrestling, but it does say, but pretty much anything you could do to hurt someone, dropping an elbow, dropping a knee, it could be called a wrestling move. It's been done in wrestling, right?
Yeah, what has not been, they joke about it all the time. He used everything with a kitchen sink, and then Raven uses a kitchen sink, and it's like, what can you actually do to a human being that at some point in the history of wrestling has not been done to another person?
I know, we can't even say, throw her out off of a third-story window because we've seen that, too.
Yeah, throw her off Cobo Hall.
Yeah. But the thing is, which I found...
Run someone over with a car. Next time someone gets hit by a car, is that going to be, inspired by wrestling? Next time someone pushes someone's car off the balcony or a ledge or something like that, is that wrestling? No, but at the same time, okay? It's not, if someone runs someone over by a car, it's pretty weak to say it was inspired by wrestling. And I think few people would actually say that. But at the same time, wrestling cannot defend it and say that we don't do this when they do. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
It's sort of like that the Jerry McDevitt thing of the injuries he sustained could not have been from wrestling moves, and it's like, well, they probably really were.
Uh-huh.
That's not to say that wrestling's at fault. And even if he was inspired by wrestling, it's certainly not a defense in a court to me. And I've had people argue with me about that one, but I don't believe that it should be. But the WWF or anyone can't say he did not use wrestling moves. And one of the reasons, which scared me, I actually wrote about this, it's in this week's Observer, was that the judge said that, I guess the expert that testified basically felt that her injuries were that she was on the ground and he was, to use a wrestling phrase, although he didn't know this phrase, he was doing the wrestling move known as stomping a mud hole into her, which is something that Steve Austin does in every single match.
Yeah.
Basically he's on the ground and stomping her, and then the judge, one of the reasons, that he threw this out, and I'm reading this and I'm going like, oh my God. You know what I mean? It's like, granted, I don't think that, again, wrestling should have probably never been in this trial at all because it was just a murder, and whether you're inspired by wrestling or inspired by a movie or inspired by your own fantasy, if you kill someone, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're responsible
I just don't know
no
that
matter
you're wrong for it.
I
don't think you can blame something that you watch on television for doing that. Well, anyway, he threw it out because he said that nowhere in wrestling has he ever heard of where someone stomps on someone on the ground and stomps on someone who's half their size. And I was just thinking, it's like threw my pencil in the air and I go, oh my God. You know what I mean? It's like actually that happens in wrestling all the time.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh boy. It was kind of like that thing, I don't know, sometimes I'll read stuff in articles where someone's discussing wrestling. the commission fight in Georgia from last week, which I also wrote about that too. In the commission fight where the legislators going like, they have this argument, and I mean, you just throw, it's like, the guy who's introducing the bill goes, we've heard rumors that people occasionally get hurt doing this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm going like, well, at least do your research. Yeah. And then on the other hand, then we had, the wrestling promoters saying, actually, no one ever gets hurt. And I was going like, great.
Which is stupid.
Yeah, I'm going
when
like,
you're
great.
lying about something like that, you're just setting yourself up. And I don't feel sorry. I don't feel sorry for any promoter who says something like that and then gets caught in a lie and something happens to them, like their show gets shut down. I don't feel sorry at all. Why lie about
it? No, I don't either, because like to go in there and say like that like nobody actually ever gets hurt doing this. We're just we're not even. Well, I mean, there's a terminology. Ron West said like we're not even professional wrestlers. Where I forget what the word is. Do I have the word here? I don't have the word. But he just goes, we're not even professional wrestlers. We're like entertainers. And I'm just thinking like, actually you are professional wrestlers, which are entertainers.
Yeah.
But don't say you're not professional wrestlers. It's like, come on, Anyway,
exactly.
We should probably.
I'm still trying to figure out. I mean, I was reading about the whole Lionel Tate thing, and I think, there have been many articles where like the lawyers have said, the kid.
The lawyers.
He didn't really know that he was going to kill this girl. He didn't mean to kill her or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm still trying to figure out why wasn't he charged with manslaughter?
Because of the feeling that while it wasn't premeditated, that while he was doing it, the injuries were so severe that he didn't mean to kill her. Because he wouldn't have done as much as he did, much damage. I mean, it wasn't like he woke up premeditated. Because it was charged as a premeditated. I guess that the idea is that while you're doing it, if you're thinking about doing it, an accident.
I see. Okay, yeah.
While he's doing it, it's premeditated. I mean, it's not like he woke up that morning and says, later today I'm going to do it. But it's like while you're beating this person, instead of stopping, you're going like, I'm going to beat this person until she's lifeless.
Yeah.
So I think that was the reason it was charged with first degree instead of second degree. And then this other strange part is in that case, I don't want to get too long in that case, but in that case was that the prosecutor, after getting the conviction for first degree and then the judge sentences to life without parole, the prosecutor comes back and just goes, we didn't really mean to charge him with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because because even the prosecutor thought that the punishment was too strong and is actually petitioning the governor of Florida, Jeb Bush, to lower the punishment. And this is the guy who charged him on that crime.
Yeah.
Going like, well, we didn't charge him with second degree because the crime meant first degree, but at the same time, we didn't mean for him to be sentenced like a first degree murderer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, which I guess I do sort of understand. It's just, what can I say about it? What can I say about our system? Our system's very bad.
Yeah.
Not that I have a better one.
Turning down the plea bargain offer.
The plea bargain offer where he would have spent no time in prison. He would have spent 3 years in juvenile detention, 10 years probation. And they turned it down to go to trial because Lewis, who scares me to death, by the way. I mean, I certainly don't want him as my lawyer. Lewis thought he could win the case. And it's like, all the evidence is against you, and you're going to go in, and your big defense is that this guy watched, Sting in a TV commercial that the judge immediately threw out, and that's your defense of getting him off, instead of a plea bargain where, he gets 3 years juvenile detention. I mean, come on. I mean, for someone who did that to someone else, the 3 years juvenile detention, to me, that's too little. Life in prison without possibility of parole for a 12-year-old is scary. But
hey, guys, I don't mean to jump in for a minute. We had a listener just call in. Apparently, he was charged, Lionel Tate, with felony murder, so there's a big difference in the plea bargaining issue. There's not as much leeway. So apparently, I guess
it was first degree. I mean, as far as leeway in the sentencing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the prosecutor's trying to get the sentencing down.
Yeah, I mean, they could have accepted the plea. The mother could have accepted the plea bargain in the beginning, and he could have been.
Oh yeah. We know that.
Right.
Yeah. But they didn't.
I guess the way they had given the charges, there was no way to drop it to a manslaughter plea. Apparently, that he was charged with first degree murder.
No. Once he was convicted, they couldn't sentence him to a second degree murder because he was convicted of first degree. Mm-hmm. But they probably could have given him parole. I mean, because everyone was shocked at the sentence. I mean, it was going to be a steep sentence because he was convicted, but no, the steepness of the sentence was the big issue. So, anyway, you want to go to the Arrowhead Pond last night for SmackDown?
Sure, except I have no idea what happened.
Okay, well, I will tell you.
I don't know a thing.
You don't know? Okay. For Sunday Night Heat this Sunday, Crash Holly wins the light heavyweight title from Dean Malenko. Dean Malenko kisses Molly, so got a new girlfriend, or a new girl he's chasing. And Molly then attacked Dean, and it allowed Crash to get a roll-up on him for the pin. And they also had a Raven Val Venus match where Steven Richards came out and did a Steven kick to Val Venus by accident, and he got pinned. And Val Venus and Steven, started fighting, but Ivory smoothed things over. They're doing this RTC breakup, I guess probably for WrestleMania, it looks like, because they're sure teasing it now.
Hey, I got a question.
Yes.
You didn't watch Heat, did you?
Sunday Night Heat. I watched about 5 minutes of it later.
Did you see the part where Ninja Chick got unmasked?
No, I didn't.
If anybody saw that show, call in and let us know what happened, because I want to know if it was like one of the Lucha deals where she was unmasked, but the cameras didn't catch who it was, but ringside fans did, because it was weird on Monday. They had the hardcore match, or Raven was out there, and they just before that match showed clips from Heat. And then Raven comes out, and you'd think that they would acknowledge that the ninja had her mask removed, and they made no mention of it whatsoever. They just go, "Oh, his ninja's not here tonight." And I thought, that's kind of weird. Why would they not even mention that if they just showed Heat clips?
No, that whole thing was very strange to me that she wasn't there at all, because I thought that, what was the point of having her once she was unmasked? That was going to be, obviously they have new ideas.
I guess so.
For SmackDown, Test beat Eddie Guerrero. Perry Saturn and Chris Jericho both interfered. Obviously, Jericho's interference was a little more effective because he nailed Eddie Guerrero, and Test won with a big scary boot. Jim Ross did an interview with Steve Austin talking about his match with Kurt Angle and later with The Rock. Undertaker was stalking the parking lot waiting for Triple H to arrive with a lead pipe. So he's trying to do Goldberg. Let's see. The Hardys and Billy Gunn, no contest with X-Pac, Albert, and Just Incredible. Regal came out and tried to reason with The Undertaker, which probably is going to be really funny. But The Undertaker scared him off and he ran away. Then Hunter and Stephanie showed up in the limo, and The Undertaker started smashing the limo with the pipe. Luckily, not with his fist. Thank God. Well, at least someone. And the police arrested Undertaker, and while he was being taken away, Hunter got a sucker punch in. So, a little bit of that.
And, of course, was not arrested. I always love that.
Yeah, that's right. And then it was revealed that it was Steve Regal who called the police. So, let's see. Then Dudley's beat Chris Jericho in a handicap match, so Regal's still screwing with Jericho. 3D through a table. It was a tables match, too. Kane demanded a match with Triple H, which, of course, he lost. Anyway.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, he did, really. So, let's see. Grandmaster Sexay had a match with RTC, but he needed a partner because, Scotty Too Hotty's injured. So Steve Blackman came in and said that he would team with Grandmaster Sexay as long as he kept his mouth shut in the dressing room. That's kind of a funny one. Let's see. So anyway, Blackman and Grandmaster Sexay beat Bull and the Goodfather. Again, Goodfather's teasing the term. The crowd's chanting, "We want hose." The Goodfather's looking around like he wants to do it. It ends up, obviously this script, usually the scripts are done like the Thursday before. Obviously they went to Jerry Lawler's script, to that long-term script for this angle, where it was going. Because the finish was that Steven Richards tried to interfere, and Taz jumped out of the announcer's chair and attacked Steven Richards, and also attacked Bull Buchanan, and he got pinned. So I guess...
Was Taz wearing a crown?
They didn't go that far.
That wasn't in the storyline? Okay.
No. And
but it was
Steve
Taz and Michael Cole, though, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Steve Blackman does, in fact, dance after the match.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I thought
Triple
that's what
H...
he would have told him is, I'll do this, but I ain't dancing.
Yeah. Triple H beat Kane with a pedigree with the interference from the Big Show. And then Big Show chokeslammed Kane after the match. And the main event is Austin and Angle in a no DQ. And Angle gets the ankle lock. Let's see. Rock is doing the announcing. And Rock and Austin collide, I think, twice. Let me see. Yeah, they collide 2 different times. Angle hit Rock with a chair at one point. Angle put the ankle lock on Austin, but Rock, recovering from the chair shot, ran in and interfered. Rock went to rock bottom Austin, but Angle attacked Rock, so rock bottomed Angle. Austin then stunned Rock and pinned Angle. Then after Austin left, Angle attacked Rock, but Rock laid him out with a people's elbow. So that's the situation
Sucks
there.
to be Angle.
What?
Sucks to be Angle.
Hey, he's getting a big push now. He got the ankle lock on. He had Austin and Rock both beat.
Well, there you go. Did Austin tap?
I do not know, and I guess we'll find out.
I highly doubt it.
I was going to bet no on that one myself. I didn't hear if that match was good, but a lot of WWF matches lately have been. So let's see. In fact, poll question for today: what was the best Raw match this year? I got A, Steve Austin against Kurt Angle. B, Rock against, that was from several weeks ago actually. Rock against Kurt Angle, which was from Monday. Eddie Guerrero against, I wrote Chris Jericho. Al, switch that to Chris Benoit. I meant Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit from Monday. And then D, Rock and Austin against Benoit and Angle. So anyway, that's the poll question. And the results of yesterday's poll question. Where are those results here?
By the way, for everybody that has been emailing, which has actually been one person, the Wrestling Observer poll will be switched again very, very soon. I'm way behind on the website because actually I did so much feedback this weekend that I got behind on everything else. So that's the story there. Okay.
The poll for Monday Night's Wrestling, 63% thought Raw was better, which is a lot better number than it's been getting lately. Probably because it was a lot better show than it's been. 6% thought Nitro was better. 1% didn't watch Raw. 18% didn't watch Nitro. And only 12% didn't watch Raw or Nitro. So at least the viewership of Raw from the readers, the listeners, actually seems back to normal. Let's see. Ken Shamrock will not be on the show on Friday, and I don't have all the details of it. Ken Shamrock has some sort of a neck vertebrae injury, and I don't know any more about it than that. They're not saying anything about how that affects the fight on the 25th, if he's in or he's out or what's going on. And I don't even think that they want the injury out, but there is a neck vertebrae injury there, so it's out. And
good job.
Yeah. And let's see. We'll probably hear more about that tomorrow. And let me see the XFL numbers. Did
he pull out of the show because he didn't want to talk about it, or?
Oh no, I don't know. I'm presuming that, yes. Or
okay.
maybe he's getting treatment, so he can.
Yeah.
Because we can fight next week. I don't know. Man, that is scary though. I mean, I wouldn't want to fight. Well, I wouldn't want to fight that guy with a gun, but that's another story. But I wouldn't want to fight Igor Vovchanchin any less than 100%.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find. I mean, sooner we're going to find something out in the next couple of days on that one. Let's see, week 6, XFL football. The NBC game actually ended up doing a 2.4 as opposed to a 2.6 that we said yesterday, because I guess what we had was the Fast Nationals. And it was slightly up from the week before. So it was actually the first time that there was an XFL show where the rating from week to week actually went up. I mean, but by percentage, like a couple hundredths of a percentage of a point. It was still the third lowest rated show in history of primetime television. The UPN was a 1.1 and the TNN was an 0.6, so the CUME was a 4.1.
0.6.
0.6, yes. That's 0.6 national, so it was actually an 0.8 cable rating. Okay. Don't want to mislead anyone. Which still
don't want to make it look like a bad number.
It's still a bad number. Yeah, I know. Brian, the Ninja was definitely revealed as Tori on Heat.
Oh, was
that
okay.
Right away. Okay. I guess the Harris twins were released by WCW. Is there any chance of them growing their hair and returning to the WWF as the Blue Brothers? God, I hope not, but I would not say there's no chance because they're friends with The Undertaker. Here's another one from about the same thing. She was unmasked. The commentators acknowledged who she was. The only thing I can come up with is from Kevin Gregg as to why she wasn't mentioned is because, as Dave said, they probably just have a new idea for her because her and Raven don't seem to mix well together. Let's see. Let's see. Not to be too graphic. This isn't graphic. Graphic would be like something really like watching Vince McMahon and Trish. But I think the reason he was charged with first degree was because of his size. He was 12 years old, but he weighed close to 200. And after the first power bomb, there would have been blood or something to tell him that if he was playing, it was time to stop. I think the power bomb was the case in Washington. I don't know that he did
I didn't hear anything about a power bomb with Tate.
Yeah, I never heard about a power bomb with Tate. Not that, he shouldn't have known when to stop.
Yeah.
And all that. Well, I think we're going to have a bunch of calls on this, actually, about this issue. So We will get to them in just a second. Jerry Lawler was on a local radio show. I think probably the Chicago show. Talked about what happened in Tucson the day he left. He said there's more to the situation than meets the eye. He said one of the WWF superstars could have pulled a power play. The King also said he thought he knew who Vince really was, but now he feels he doesn't. He's not the last person who will ever say that. Jerry Lawler thought that Paul Heyman did a better job on his first week than on his second. He was not surprised that what the WWF said about him and the Cat on television. He was surprised they didn't say more. And he also said
he was surprised they didn't say more.
Yeah, I'm not surprised they didn't say more.
Why would that be surprising that they said is what they did? I mean, surprising they said anything at all.
Yeah. I guess they felt they had to. Jerry talked about running for mayor of Memphis. Well, that's probably why, because he's talking about running for mayor of Memphis again. He doesn't realize that, he is a great talker, but how anyone who put pictures of his now wife on the Internet, some of the pictures that he put up, and then wants to run for mayor of Memphis, I mean, come on. It's like, I'm not, he can do whatever he wants.
I think he just put some new ones up, too.
It's like he can do whatever he wants, and that's fine, but it's like, who's going to ever, he can't run for mayor. I mean, there's no law. I mean, he can, and he'll get 10% of the vote, but I mean, no one's going to, which is actually more than a lot of candidates are going to get, but come on, let's see. He also said that his son is a better dancer than he was. Did not say he was a better wrestler. Let's see. What do you think about Hulk Hogan in WrestleMania 17? I don't think he's going to be there. This is from Chris, who goes, I noticed the judge's complete misunderstanding of professional wrestling, too. It was nice to see I was not the only one. If WCW closed tomorrow, who would WWF be most interested in? I don't know. I would guess...
guys you'd expect, like Goldberg.
Bill Goldberg, Booker T.
Yeah.
Maybe Billy Kidman. Not most. I'm just trying to think. I
think they sent a lot of the guys like O'Hare to the developmental deals.
I'm sure they would sign O'Hare.
Not put him on TV immediately or anything like that.
No, I'm sure they would send O'Hare to Memphis. Maybe Louisville. I'm trying to think who else. A lot of those little guys, boy, they're that are good workers, or great workers, even like Kazuyashi. They're not going to be very lucky.
No, they're not.
Boy, who else on that roster? Scott Steiner, I think they'll sign.
Yeah, Scott.
Rick, I would say no. Page, maybe yes, maybe no. It depends on the mood. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a lock. So I don't know. Go through the roster.
Maybe Canyon.
Canyon, I think they would sign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cat, I would say no.
Oh, God.
Although I wouldn't say 100% no, because he's pretty funny.
What about Flair?
As far as some form, I'm sure that they would give him some form of a job if he asked for one. Yeah.
I think there's a role for him.
Oh, there absolutely is a role for him. Yeah. In fact, I would say Flair. They would Nash. Everyone in that company says no, but I still believe that they will.
Yeah.
And I know you think the same way, don't you?
I think so.
Yes. It's from Chris. Do you think any of the WF superstars will be looked upon as legends in 5 or 10 years? Hunter?
Any of the WWF?
WWF guys from today, yes.
I think there's some now.
Hunter, Austin, Rock, and I think Angle will. Some of the other ones might. I mean, depending on what they do the rest of their career. But those, I would say, that's pretty much all. Those guys are a lock. What? Austin, Rock, and Hunter and Angle, I think.
Ross, even though he's not a wrestler.
Jim Ross already is, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see. Are there any plans to do best of WCW shows during the proposed shutdown? I think they were actually meeting today about what they were going to do during the shutdown, as far as TV. So I don't know.
Be a bunch of 1-minute episodes of Best of Nitro.
This is from Ben Smith. I'm hoping the sale of WCW goes through and that they turn their act around. As a wrestling fan, I'm not looking forward to the industry being controlled by just the WWF. Boy, I'm not either. A lot of people, actually, in the last 2 days, have commented to me about last week's, not the Observer that's obviously not this week's Observer because it's just being printed right now, but last week's Observer, because, you know what I mean? I kind of, talked about, what I think where it's going to be in a year, and I think they kind of saw that, wow, that really is where it's going to be in a year.
Yeah.
It's not...
Especially after that issue you wrote about, was it September of last year or the year before? September
'99, right after Eric Bischoff got dumped and right before Russo came in.
God, that was an awesome issue.
Yeah.
And it all came true.
Yeah, I know. You know what was really bad? Was like, and you remember this, like probably 6-9 months later, I reprinted it again and put it on the internet because it was like, okay, you've screwed up the last 9 months. Now here's another chance. Read it again. And then they did it again.
Yeah.
And then it got worse.
The opposite. The complete
They did the opposite. Yeah. Let's see. Competition is what made the wrestling industry great. Absolutely. And as much as most people don't want to admit it, Bischoff helped make wrestling a lot more popular. I don't think anyone can deny that. I mean, you can hate the guy if you want to hate the guy, but you can't deny that, Bischoff was one of the key people, in making wrestling as popular as it became, because I can remember 1997 watching Nitro on the West Coast from 5 to 8, and then flipping over to Raw, watching 5 hours of entertaining action on Mondays. Now I watch Raw and SmackDown, but I don't have the same excitement I once had when competition was at its peak and each show was trying to top each other. Hopefully WCW can get turned around, but I'm not holding my breath. If they do, it'll be one of the worst. If they do fold, it'll be one of the worst things that can happen for the fans. Yeah,
You know what, though? Here's something you have to think about. It all depends on what the world and the wrestling world and everything was like when a certain thing happened. I mean, Eric Bischoff was responsible for this boom, and that's great. He was. But that means absolutely nothing in the year 2001. It means nothing. It's like Gorgeous George was Mr. Television 1949 or whatever. Would he do that today? No, because it's a totally different world. I mean, there were so many things in 1996 that Bischoff had going for him that he absolutely does not have now.
So many things. In fact, that's actually what I was writing. That's what I wrote about last week. The whole cruiserweight thing was something, Paul Heyman had brought some of those guys in, but basically for a national audience, a wrestler like Eddie Guerrero, nobody had seen him. Chris Benoit, he was in WCW a few years earlier, but they didn't know how to push him. But, that whole sort, Rey Mysterio was a phenomenon. You can't do that now. You could bring in, like, say, Ricky Marvin from Mexico, and people won't take it seriously because they know all those guys get jobbed. The minute they see his size, I'm not saying that it's going to be like this forever because you can, there's the re-education and with enough time you can convince people of stuff if you promote it right. But I'm talking about right now, quick fix. You can't bring in a bunch of foreign guys and have great work rate and turn this thing around. You can't, there's none of these legends like a Randy Savage or a Roddy Piper that are sitting on the sidelines a few years past their prime that you can bring back and get big buy rates with a Hulk Hogan. They don't exist.
Yeah.
It's like
Plus,
all of those things.
When they brought the cruiserweights in '95 or whatever, not only was it a bunch of new guys, but it was a new style. And now you can bring guys in, but it's going to be the same style. It's just different faces.
Yeah.
Plus, the whole thing with not even looking at WCW, but looking at how the WWF was back then. It wasn't like Vince was making $300 million a year and Eric just scooped him. Vince was really
Vince was struggling. They were totally behind the times.
Yeah.
They were
that was a Teal Hopper in the that was that period.
It was the thing where you remember they had no recognition for new stars, and they had all those big slow guys like they always had for 20 years, and people were tired of the big slow guys. They don't have that. What they're competing with now. WWF has got there's like 5 guys in the whole roster, 6 guys that really aren't good workers, some number like that. Whatever. Maybe there's a few more, but most of them are. It wasn't like you go back to that roster that they used to have where, you had a couple of guys who were really good, and then you had, Diesel and Mabel and, all of those kind of guys. And they were in main events, Sid Vicious,
Yep. Nash versus Mabel at SummerSlam.
What were they thinking? This is from Mark Smalley, who goes, in the last few days I've been involved in a lot of discussion about what was the greatest tag team match of all time. The 4 that caused the most discussion are All Japan Women, November 26, 1992, Ozaki and Dynamite Kansai against Toyota and Yamada. It was an awesome match. All Japan Women Dream Slam, the rematch. It was an awesome match. June 9, 1995, Kobashi Misawa versus Kawada Taue. And December 1996, Real World Tag League Finals, Kawada Taue versus Misawa and Akiyama. I'm interested in your opinions on these 4 matches, as well as any others you think are on a comparable level. God. There are so many of those Misawa and Kobashi versus Kawada and Taue matches that I saw that were, unbelievable, or even years earlier with Saruta, and was it Saruta and Taue against Misawa and Kawada? Just so many. As far as those two women's matches that you mentioned, they were off the charts. I mean, I can't pick like I don't know. There's one match that when it happened, and I think it won Match of the Year. So that means Brian probably just watched it because you just watched all the matches of the year like in the last couple of days, right?
I haven't watched all of them yet, but I'm getting through them.
Okay. I remember, and this is a match which I did not think was the best match of the year, but I remember when it took place, or actually not when it took place, but when it aired on television. It was Kenny Kobashi and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi against Crawford and Furnace. That everyone was just writing me letters. Like this is the greatest tag team match in the history of wrestling, and I didn't think it was. But I was wondering, have you watched that match?
No, I haven't watched that one yet. But on a similar vein, I did just watch Hase and Sasaki versus the Steiners, and I want to chastise every person that voted for that for Match of the Year because that did not age well. That did not hold up to the times because, I don't know. It was all right.
If you look back at a lot of the matches of the year, some hold up and some don't.
Yeah, that absolutely did not.
Okay. I mean, I haven't watched that match probably in years, but the one thing about what did so well with that match is that I think that was the first time there was ever a pay-per-view from the Tokyo Dome, and at that point, the Japanese style was from in the ring was way above the American style at that point in time.
Yeah.
And so it was like it was the first time that like the masses in America saw like a Japanese, a really great Japanese main event, which at that time that was a really great match.
So it's like the one of those deals where just so many people from the U.S. saw it, and you have a bigger U.S. reader base.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was one where all the and it wasn't necessarily the best match in Japan, but it was probably the best match of that year on American television.
Okay.
So anyway, we got Jeff Marek here. Jeff, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing today?
Hey.
We're doing really, really good. You hear anything new on WCW?
No, I've been talking to a couple people today. Actually, had a number of people call and ask me that question, what's going on, and I really don't have any answers today.
I've heard a million rumors and same thing we've been hearing for a while.
I mean, I've heard, the sale's gone through and, Eric's just kayfabing everybody. I've heard there's no sale. Eric's going to walk away. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard the same thing.
Yeah, I've heard enough of it that I don't want to hear anything until someone says, okay, this is what it is. Because I mean, like last night, I was hearing from WCW wrestlers, and it was like an alternating thing. One of them was like the sale is just a formality; it's going to go through in 7 or 10 days, and the other one was that we heard from Eric's friends, and it's not going to happen at all, and who knows what's going to happen to the company. And it's like but no one knew, no one really knew anything though.
I've heard a lot of it from WWF guys, too, who are really concerned. If the deal doesn't go through, what's going to happen with World Championship Wrestling? Because, the leverage power goes out the window if WCW collapses, and that's it.
Not only that, but if you're a lower third of the card WWF guy, you got to know that they're going to bring in, 5, 6, 8 guys, and the lower third guys are going to be in jeopardy. If you're an upper 2/3 guy, I don't think you're in jeopardy right away, but you certainly are when you negotiate your next contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the names that we've heard already, other people that I've talked to already, it's going to be like, we're interested in Lance Storm, we're interested in Mike Awesome, of course, we're interested in Goldberg. Where's the spot on the WWF roster for these guys right now? There's just no place, and someone's got to go, and it's obviously going to be those lower end guys.
Here's the other one too. If something happens to WCW, it doesn't exist, and they sign up, let's say 5, 6, 8 of those WCW guys or more or whatever, that all of those guys when they come in are immediately going to be beat.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like we're going to get Bill Goldberg run through Hunter to set up this big dream match with Austin that can do a big buy rate, even though it can and would.
He'll run through Angle.
He may not.
I don't even know if he'll go through Angle. No way. I don't know. Goldberg's an interesting one because, of all the heat there is between Goldberg and Vince and Hunter right now. And Hunter's probably the most powerful guy in that locker room. They do bring in someone like Goldberg. If WCW does collapse, very interesting to see how they book him. Because, like you say, there are a lot of dream matches you can do with Goldberg. But
the thing with Goldberg is of all those guys, though, Goldberg's the one who initially will draw the biggest buy rates. In fact, correctly done, Goldberg could really up the buy rates of these things. Because if they put Goldberg over real like WCW did originally, and have him just plow through people until he gets to Rock and or Austin, those matches will do, they could do WrestleMania buy rates, but to do that, he's got to squash all those guys, and there's going to be, will they let him do that? And my gut feeling is probably not.
No, my gut feeling is they wouldn't either. I mean, they didn't let anyone else who came over from World Championship Wrestling do that. They didn't let, Giant do that. They didn't let Jericho. They didn't let Benoit. I mean, no one. It just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, and they pissed away initial buy rates for Benoit, too.
Oh, totally. I mean, and it worked when wrestling was territorial, but now that it's just two big national companies, you can't do that kind of stuff anymore. And,
Jeff, one thing we were talking about a little bit earlier, and we talked about this on your show when I was on a couple days ago. What have you? We've actually, I've discussed this many times. What are your thoughts of this business 1 year from today?
It's actually kind of frightening. I mean, when I sort of blue skied, I think, well, WCW is going to be back on track, and Eric and Fusion will stabilize that company, and UFC will be a strong third alternative. But really, when you look at it realistically, I have no reason to believe that WCW is going to turn around at all. And UFC is a big question mark. The WWF will probably be the only product out there, and without competition, it'll probably be a stale product because, what motivation is there for Vince?
Yeah. This is also a question for you. It says, because I know that Trish Stratus co-hosted The Law with you, and you know each other, and you're probably good friends. Has she said anything to you about why the storylines are making her look like a complete idiot? To me, the recent stuff with Vince seems like some sort of perverted joke that him and the writers are doing to get back at Trish. Has she pissed people off? She seems like she's a team player looking at it from the outside.
Yeah, she was pretty wide-eyed and naive going into the World Wrestling Federation. I mean, she always had the WWF blinders on. I haven't talked to her in the last actually, I haven't talked to her in about a month. But I know if I know Trish, I know she really, really hated the angle she's been doing with Vince. She's she's honest about herself, and she knows why she's there. I mean, she's not there because, she's an amazing wrestler or anything. She's there because of her looks, and she understands that that's her profile and that's her cachet. At the same time, she's still a really proud person, and doesn't... I mean, one of the reasons... she was going to go to World Championship Wrestling originally. I don't know if you guys know that story. At the Mayhem pay-per-view a couple years ago, Vince Russo talked to her and sort of laid out a plan for her. And it was a lot of TNA and stuff like that. And that was one of the main reasons why she didn't go, even though WCW was offering her more money. So I know she can't be thrilled. As far as having heat in the locker room, or why they'd be doing this to her, we knew when she came in she'd have, heat with the women. But I can't imagine that, heat with a few key women. We probably know who those are too. Would find her, in this angle.
I mean, I don't see it as something like Vince is doing this because he's angry at her. I think it's more like Vince is he's going crazy.
He's just frustrated.
It's not like really crazy, but he's just so stressed.
I don't think that her. I think that if it wasn't her, it would have been somebody else. It's not like it's about. I don't think the angle's about her at all.
Yeah, interesting though that it's not Deborah, it's not China, it's not anyone that.
Well, it can't be. It can't be Deborah, and it can't be China.
Oh no, I understand that from the storyline reasons, but from behind the scenes reasons. I mean, it's not going to be Austin's wife, right? And it's not going to be Hunter's ex.
Yeah.
So I mean, and she's.
But it can't be China anyway because it has to be a woman that I mean, China theoretically
should just. It has to be a real good-looking young woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it had to be real good-looking and young, and also, China theoretically would belt Vince in the mouth if he tried anything anyway. She couldn't, you know what I mean? Well, she couldn't be portrayed like that.
You know what, though? If apparently, Vince and the writers had so much heat with Stacey Carter, with Kat, why didn't they book this with her?
She'd have done it.
Sure.
No problem. Had fun doing
it. Oh, boy. Yeah. Maybe they felt that she would really, that whole thing about she was going to turn into Sable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if she could, and if that's true, that they were afraid she would turn into Sable, putting her in a main event angle with Vince McMahon, she would turn into Sable.
Yeah, I mean, she's thrilled to have that spot. Like, I remember when she first got the spot, where she was first on the ramp with like Shane and Stephanie. I think Vince was out there too. I mean, she was really excited. Like, wow, I'm getting this amazing spot. And then obviously everyone, some key people in the locker room got their backs up. So I know she's kind of torn. It's like, wow, I have this amazing spot on television. I'm out there with Vince. Every day I'm a little intimidated. How do I say no? How do I say no to anything? I've been in the company for a year.
Yeah, and if she does say no, then she's Sable again.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, she's caught. She's trapped.
She's trapped, yeah. I mean, unless she wants to get out of the game. I mean, that's
Which
your
she doesn't want
choice.
to do. Although, you know what, she's always maintained, she signed the 1 year, the 3-year deal, and at the end of 3 years, that was going to be it for her, but...
We've heard that one before.
I was going to say...
Who have we not heard that from?
I'm almost embarrassed to even say it.
Did I send you that whole USA Today online chat, Dave? With Hunter?
No, you only sent me the one line about Hunter when they asked him if he when the person asked him what kind of drugs he uses to get his physique, and he said that he's never done any drugs for his physique.
Yeah,
but I don't know anything else.
He just died it down after his debut, and now he's just bulking back up.
Yeah.
I'd wondered about that. Anyway, he also said, I don't want to be one of those wrestlers who stays around too long.
Has there ever been anyone ever who actually walked away from this business in their prime and never came back? Ever.
Voluntarily?
I mean, as far as a superstar. I mean, a real super. I'm not talking about someone who couldn't get booked anymore.
Are you
but I
talking
mean,
like a tippy top superstar, or even because I'm thinking the only one who probably would have done that would have been Owen Hart.
And we don't know that he would have done it either.
Mm-hmm.
He might. I mean, Brett was forced out with the injury, and he still was not at his peak. He was probably a couple of years past his peak when he did it when that happened. I mean, is there anyone who actually I'm saying at the age of 35 as opposed to at the age of 40, 42, said, I can't quite do. I mean, I remember Bruno Sammartino's retirement, the original retirement. He was 81, so he'd been 45, just maybe right before his 46th birthday. And he was just I need to get out because I don't want people going, oh, Bruno, remember when Bruno was good? And he just goes, I just don't want to be in the ring when people said that. And he did come back, and obviously everyone knows he regrets that he came back about 3 years later for the David thing. But even then, Bruno was 45, 46 when he did walk away, and he was a top guy. I mean, he was really a top guy when he walked away at that age, but that's not walking away at 35.
I can't think of anybody. I don't think there has been anybody.
I
mean, the nature of the wrestling business is that you can't walk away.
So
while
seductive.
you're on top. You can't walk away on top. There's always too much money to come back.
I mean, and also here's another one. How many guys have we heard that Shawn Michaels, just an example that pops into my mind right now. Career-ending injury, absolutely told by the doctors, Paul Orndorff, do not come back, and literally they always do. Mm-hmm. If they physically can. I mean, Buddy Cole.
I wish you hadn't mentioned Shawn Michaels and Paul Orndorff in the same sentence, because look what happened to Orndorff.
I know. Well, no, he came back many times. I'm talking about coming back after that mid-'80s thing, where he hurt his arm, and then he came back, and then he came back the last time. That was obviously, something that was a bad one. Let's go to John in Florida. John, what's going on?
Dave, how you doing?
Doing really good.
Listen, I saw something on the internet. I don't know how true it is, but Dave Apter said, why would Eric Bischoff be on vacation in middle of negotiations unless he's celebrating?
Dave Apter doesn't exist. I think that's a spoof.
Do you think that's possible?
What's possible?
He's in Hawaii celebrating.
I hope he's celebrating.
No, that
he's not crying right now.
Done.
What? I mean, I know what he's there for, and I hope he's celebrating. He's not there for anything to do with wrestling, though.
Where in Hawaii? What part of Hawaii?
That I don't know.
One of the islands.
If I knew, I'd probably know more about what's going on.
But why would he be there during negotiations?
No, they stopped. Actually, Eric Bischoff's not even involved in these negotiations. That's the Fusion and Time Warner executives. Eric's a creative guy. Eric's not a money guy, which is good. I mean, that part of it's good.
But do you think the deal's going to go through?
I don't want to speculate because it would be really, even speculating one way or the other would be like leading on that I know more than I do and I don't. I think that there's a possibility that it will, and I've heard enough evidence on both sides to know that there's a possibility of either.
Because I already heard it's already done, and they're going to do it at Greed.
They may. I mean,
or Monday night in Gainesville.
Or Monday night, or Monday night in what was the other one? No, but that's the same thing. Okay, but see, now that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying it's not true because, as I said, I do not know. But I mean, how many times when ECW was running out the string, there's 3 shows left that we heard, or 5 shows left that we heard that on this date or on this pay-per-view, Paul's going to come in and announce, I got USA Network and everything is happy. I mean, it's like that's the nature of rumors. And it may be, and again, it may be true, but there's no evidence of anything.
Yeah,
What do you think's going to happen at the pay-per-view? Is Ric Flair going to kiss Dusty's ass?
Oh, God.
Oh, that I don't know. Probably.
Ric Flair, his deal's probably coming due, or he's working without a contract, whatever the deal is right now. So.
Hey, Dave, I saw your home number on the net, you know.
My home number?
It's on the internet. I have it written down.
Well, don't
That's
call
okay.
it.
I mean, my home number's in the Observer every week.
I think it's on the website, too.
It's not a big deal.
My friend called and he said he got some guy Rick.
Then maybe it's the wrong number that's on the internet. I don't know.
I don't know. But let me ask you this. Why is Vince McMahon the way he is?
That's the best question I've
We've been
ever
trying to
heard.
figure that out for years.
Do you think he killed
I think it's a
Owen Hart, or
product.
was it an
I think it's a
accident?
product of. I think it's a product of his upbringing. Seriously,
It was an accident.
You think so? What makes you say this?
because that's the only answer I could give you. It's heredity and environment that
No, he's
causes.
talking about Owen Hart. He's talking about Vince killed Owen.
Vince didn't kill Owen.
Let me ask you this. I heard this. I heard Owen wanted out of his contract to go with Brett to WCW. Then a couple of weeks later, they tell him go up top, and he's afraid of heights. And then all of a sudden he falls. Don't you find something fishy there?
I do not, for one second, think that Vince McMahon did anything to cause that to happen, or that he's anything but sorry. Why would he? You know, he didn't have anything against Owen Hart. He wouldn't even do that to Bret Hart, although I'm sure he's had thoughts of doing it. But he wouldn't do it. I mean, there's a lot of things that Vince McMahon is, and there's a lot of things that he isn't, but that isn't one of them. And certainly not to Owen Hart. No way. I mean,
But he wanted out of his contract.
There's been a lot of
Owen
people
Hart
that wanted out of their contracts that he hasn't killed.
And that we're not nearly as nice people as Owen Hart either. And while he did ask, I mean, it wasn't, how do I say, it wasn't like he demanded and threw a fuss. And just, like, there are guys like Kevin Wackholz, although it was one out of his contract, but Kevin Wackholz grabbed him and, I mean, if he wanted to kill someone, choked him out, and then, said that Vince sexually harassed or grabbed him and all this, if there was ever anyone who Vince McMahon would probably have good reason to want to, send up there and cut the cord, that would be the guy, certainly not Owen Hart. And
I would think Jesse Ventura over Owen Hart, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Yeah, and he brought him back twice now.
Totally.
Oh, I just remember something else. If WCW is going to fold, why are they signing all the guys they're signing?
They're not signing anyone.
Jerry Lawler?
They haven't signed.
He hasn't signed yet.
Not yet, but obviously he's gonna.
Well, if you're running a business, you can't if Eric, obviously you're going to talk about the future if there is a future. I mean, if you're in a business, you plan the future until basically the day you fold. I mean, that's just the nature of a business. They're not telling all the employees, it's like if they went in there and just go, oh, by the way, everybody, we're actually running out of money and we're folding in like 2 months. Do you know how bad the TV shows would be for the next 2 months?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I shouldn't say anything about that, but
I'll tell you though, if the deal is done, none of the wrestlers, that I've talked to, and there's a whole bunch of those, no one knows about it.
yeah,
No one's got.
And it is, I mean, I don't put it past the possibility that Bischoff wants to announce it on his own time and probably during an angle. If it is done, but I don't know that that's true.
Well, let me ask you this: what Ric Flair said Monday night that he put Savage and Hogan, is that a hint?
I was afraid of that hint. Well, okay, now the angles that they're running the angles based on the idea that it's going to be sold. Yes, I mean for sure.
So
I mean,
he's going to.
But the writers don't know if it is.
But the writers don't know anything either. Yeah.
That's just Ed Ferrara and Johnny Ace trying to.
But I mean, I'm saying, could that be a hint that these guys are returning?
Absolutely, yes. It scared me to death, but yes, it's a hint. But everyone knows that that's a possibility.
All right, Dave.
Although Piper's a long shot. Anyway, we got to get running, okay?
He's gone. Don't call that number, dude.
I want to ask you, as far as what's going on with Off the Record?
Off the Record, we're doing 3 shows this weekend. We're taping them all on Saturday. I'm going to be writing them along with Bob Mackwitz and Michael Landsberg. The first one is going to be Hardy Boys and Lita. It's going to be a 3-chair panel. Second one's going to be
hold on. On that one, are you going to be discussing wrestling or is it other subjects?
Oh, everything's all about wrestling.
Oh, it's going to be all wrestling, okay.
All wrestling, yeah. All 3 shows are all about wrestling. So Hardy Boys and Lita. The second show is going to be an all-Canadian panel. It's going to have Edge, Christian, Val, and Chris Jericho. That's going to be like a more sort of State of the Union address for pro wrestling, like a strong sort of wrestling issues show. The Hardy Boys one, I think it's going to be, depending on how we can negotiate it politically, I think it might be talking about backyard wrestling and what's next as far as the outrageousness in the ring goes. And the third one's going to be a one-on-one with Kurt Angle.
So you did get Kurt Angle.
We got Kurt Angle. Originally it was going to be Taker, and then Taker fell through, and then it was going to be Big Show, and then, thankfully, that fell through, and then they gave us Kurt Angle.
You got the best of the three for a good show.
Yeah, I know. I was really pleased. I mean, Kurt's got a great story that not a lot of people have heard unless they listen to Observer Live or our show or follow what goes on the net or followed his career closely. That one's going to be kind of a biography-based show, sort of get to know Kurt Angle. And, we're going to focus on, the difference between Olympics and pro style. And actually, I had someone email me a question today, which is probably a really good one that we'll use on the show, is, what are the differences between how political the Olympics is and how you got in there and how political pro wrestling is and sort of what are the differences and do you know who your enemies were or are in both?
That's an interesting one. I would think, and Brian would know this more than me, but I would think that in sports like gymnastics and figure skating, the politics is probably more similar to pro wrestling than a lot of people would admit. But, like a sport like a amateur wrestling or a track, I mean, obviously there's going to be politics and everything. I think that would probably have less. I don't know, Brian, what are you, as far as like gymnastics, because I know that's, some sport that you know very well.
As far as like the politics of what exactly?
Like who makes the team, I mean, as far as...
Yeah, well, a lot of it...
I mean, isn't your reputation worth a few points?
Yeah,
things like that?
The way I look at it as far as comparison is, there's actually a lot of comparisons to wrestling, just as far as the cosmetic deal, who you train with. I don't know. It's just like we were talking about that book, The Little Girls in Pretty Boxes, and it's like you read that book, and it's almost like reading about wrestling.
That's so weird you bring that up. I got that book right here in front of me. I just started it a couple weeks ago.
Really?
It's a fascinating book. Yeah, the Joan Ryan book.
Yeah, Joan Ryan book.
Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, the thing with the one with the gymnastics though is, I felt that gymnastics was far more scary than wrestling.
The reason it is because it affects young girls.
It's children.
Yeah.
It's not like grown men making their decisions, like, okay, I'm going to put this in my body, I'm going to look like this, or grown women starving themselves. It's like 12-year-old, 11-year-old girls.
The thing with even with the steroids, which can be dangerous. Especially if you get hooked on them, and some of the other drugs. And I mean, people have died at a faster rate in wrestling than in the gymnastics, where they were pointing out. I think I read about 2 deaths in that whole community that they found in that book over a several-year period. But the nature of starving yourself to keep your size that small, and the whole, I mean, it was, and the idea that mentally. I mean, the idea of a sport where you peak at 14, 15, 16, and when you're 18, if you miss that one Olympics, you're done, because you're 18 and your body's developed and you're done. I mean, there's something so scary about reading about that.
And the whole thing is, you can look at certain wrestlers who are in their 40s right now, and you can say, man, this guy's been on the juice since he was 18 years old. It's been like 30 years, and he's still going. But you're talking about doing all this damage to your body when you're still developing and growing. And it just does so much damage at such a fast rate as compared to, someone that's already developed physically, like these wrestlers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then by the time you're 20 years old, you're a has-been, and you're destroyed pretty much for the rest of your life.
Yep.
To an extent, because I know, like, one of my best friends, their daughter's competing at a pretty high level, and like some of her friends that we've had over here are actually, like, one of them's actually considering going to Bella Caroli, right? And so I was like, oh boy, you know what I mean? This is after, and this is like right after I read that book, and they're going like, yeah, we're going to send her to Bella Caroli, and it's like, because we want her to make the Olympic team, and I go, well, I hope that she's not a failure if she fails to make the Olympic team. And she's just doing it because it's what she enjoys. But I'm just really scared when I was hearing that name. I was like, oh God, she's going to be scarred for life.
It's like sending a 12-year-old boy to Stu Hart to be a pro wrestler.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but Stu Hart wouldn't have him in the dungeon 12 hours a day.
And not let him eat food.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the food thing was more than training's hard. And the fact that they got to train through injuries is hard. But a lot of athletes do that. I mean, But the food thing is what scared me.
Having to sneak food and having all
and having to
like
stay,
little
having
kids plotting how to sneak food into a room around security guards outside their door.
Oh, and then also
have like
turning the little kids on their parents as well. I mean, that's
and the parents on each other.
Tremendous psychological damage to these kids for years.
Yeah, and the parents, I mean, the parents want it more than the kids. Because the kids turn into robots that just do what they do because they know it's what they do. But the parents, that's their existence. That's not gymnastics. Yeah. Let's get off of gymnastics because I know they don't want to hear this. We can talk about this book on our own time. It is a great book, though. And if those of you who are interested, it's a great book. Anyway, guy who walked away, Jack Briscoe. That's as close as I could come to, Jack was 41 when he walked away, but he did. He really walked away.
Yeah. Well, that was more
one day he was on the road. He told his brother, "I'm going home." Yeah. And he never came back.
More disgusted with the WWF?
Yeah, it was the early days of the WWF. It says, didn't Mick Foley leave on top? Mick Foley, the thing with Mick Foley was that he stopped wrestling because he knew that he could no longer perform at that level, even though two of his last few matches were unbelievable, but that's why he did. It wasn't a matter of he was on top and he was going to walk away, and he's still in the business, and he's coming back, although maybe not to wrestle. So I don't know that. He didn't walk away from the pop. He's just taking a hiatus because for family reasons.
He'll be back to wrestle. Let's not kid ourselves.
What?
I said he'll be back to wrestle. Let's not kid ourselves. I don't know if he's
maybe never full time. I'm sure he'll do it. I would expect he'll do a match at some point in the next 10 years. Sure.
He's not
I don't know that he'll be on the ring, and he may. You never know.
He's not going to do 200 house shows a year, but he'll do key TV match and he'll do pay-per-view matches, and I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah. This is, when did the WWF start? Who was the first promoter, and how many generations of McMahon have been promoters of the company? Well, the first...
1905.
Okay, Jess McMahon, who was the boxing matchmaker at the Garden in the 20s and 30s, also promoted a lot of pro wrestling, or some pro wrestling. So he would have been the first McMahon. And then Vince Sr., who was Capital Wrestling, who promoted at the Garden from the 50s and the 60s, and actually through 1982, and then Vince Jr. So that's the lineal thing. As far as the term Worldwide Wrestling Federation started in 1963, although the McMahons promoted wrestling. I don't know where Jess probably started in the 30s, I'm guessing. But the term Worldwide Wrestling Federation started in 63 when Buddy Rogers was the NWA champion. It's actually an interesting story. And he was being booked by the New York office. He was a big draw. And they were taking all the plum dates. And basically the other NWA promoters were having a really hard time getting dates on their world champion. And it was kind of well known in wrestling that Vince Sr. and Toots Mondt, who ran the WWF at that point, were wanting to kind of pull Rogers out and pull away. And the NWA was trying their game, which was Sam Mushnick's group. And they were all theoretically aligned with each other and all friends. While, of course, as they were actually backstabbing each other, and Mushnick's game that he was trying to play was to corner Buddy Rogers and have him drop the title so they could have their, quote, world champion, the NWA world champion, back booked by the NWA, and then those guys could book, whatever they wanted, however they wanted, and then they wouldn't have the world champion. So what ended up happening was Rogers kept being in a position where he was supposed to lose the title, and somehow or other kept getting injured right before the match. It happened 2 or 3 times. So finally the match happened in Toronto with Rogers and Lou Thesz. And that was the one where this phrase was not first said, but it was said. Lou Thesz whispered to Buddy Rogers, we could do it. Actually, what happened was there was a lot of funny stories with that because the champion had to post a $25,000 bond. And so they were going to release his bond and basically, okay, buddy, if you don't lose the title in the ring to Lou Thesz, you're losing your $25,000. And they basically took the cash and they go, if you want, I forget what it was, but if you lose, there's a whole thing. But Buddy actually didn't trust Vince Sr. to hold the cash. He wanted Sam to hold the cash, even though Vince Sr. was his partner. But anyway, Buddy lost the match to Lou Thesz in the ring, and Lou had told him basically when the match started that we could do it the hard way or the easy way, and Buddy was just like, let's do it the easy way.
That's the old Ed Lewis line.
Yeah, that's where he got it from, was Ed Lewis and Ed Don George. Well, anyway, so Thesz won the title, and what happened was the Northeast promoters just basically pretended the match never took place, which this would be commonplace now, but in those days, that was a real big deal. They just pretended it didn't take place, and they just basically announced that Buddy Rogers had won a tournament in Rio de Janeiro from Gracie's dad, I guess, and was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion. And then Rogers lost to Bruno right away, and Bruno held the title for 8 years. So that's basically the gist on that. Let's go to Charles in Connecticut. Charles, what's up?
Hi, Dave. How you doing?
Doing good.
Hello?
Yes.
We're here.
You're
I didn't get to hear, it's funny you were talking about Lutez and Buddy Rogers. I didn't get to hear the program on Monday with Lutez, and I didn't get a chance to call in, but I did read the transcript of the law with Buddy Rogers, or not Buddy Rogers, Lutez, and he said said something about in Toronto he beat up Bruno in a match, and I sent you this email. I don't know if you answered it or not, but
yeah, actually, it was yesterday. Yeah, I did answer it. Yeah, that was a work match.
Yeah.
There was actually politics involved. See, the NWA knew, okay, Mushnick and Tunney, Frank Tunney, they were the powers of the NWA along with Jim Barnett, and they knew that Rogers was going to lose the title to San Martino, and the idea was they had Thez beat Rogers, I think, twice, and then they booked a match with Thez and San Martino, this before San Martino won the WF title, and then had Thez go over San Martino, so that way if, from this historical standpoint, if people actually, and in those days, that was really, really important. It was the big thing, like when Bruno won the title, it was like, well, right before Bruno won the title, he wrestled, Thez beat Bruno, Thez beat Rogers, so Thez is the real champion. That was the mentality. And Bruno, Bruno did lose that match. So, yeah.
So that was a work match?
Oh, yeah, of course.
I got the impression from reading, from the law, from reading about Lutez, that a lot of his matches that he won legitimately, or at least some of his matches he won legitimately. Like, how true is that?
No, that's what we like to claim. I mean,
none.
I mean, is that just a story he likes to tell, or?
I'm sure he had matches because it was a different era and especially because of who he was, where people tried to test him out, and there was an element of shooting in matches. But as far as wrestling was all predetermined after 1915, and Lou didn't start till 37 or 30 or 35, whatever year it was. So, it was all predetermined wrestling in those days. Now, did he ever get into real scuffles? Absolutely. That happened, and it would have happened with him. And that's why he was champion for all those years, was because they trusted that nobody's going to get the better of him in a real scuffle. They trust, that's it was real. That's why he had the title in the 50s, as much for that as also the fact that he was a good performer. There was always the fear that if you put the championship on someone who couldn't defend themselves, that somebody would double cross them, because that's what happened in the 20s several times, in the 30s. And embarrass you. So, that's one of the reasons, that Thez was champion for so many years, was because he did have that respect as being real.
Or one of the fans could challenge him and beat him up in public, which,
yeah, anything, yeah.
Because he said what he was doing back then was closer to UFC than to wrestling, than to, like, WWF right now. So,
it's in the middle.
He said he didn't watch much UFC, so.
Yeah, it's in the, it's like, stylistically, it was closer to wrestling than what they do now. But, as far as, it was no more, I would have to say it was no more of a sport than now, if you use the same terminology. What they do is it's a different form of sport. Now it's a lot more fast-paced. It's a lot more acrobatic, tumbling, spectacular. That looked more like, their form looked more like wrestling. But ultimately, it's just a different form of the same. I consider it a different form of the same thing.
Weren't I heard the Strangler Lewis matches in the 20s were real.
No,
they weren't.
No.
We had 1 hour, 2 hour.
No. The 5 hour match with Joe Stecker, I'm convinced that was real. Okay, but most of the 1 hour matches, no, they were not.
They always say he was the first one that jobbed, or he's the first one that be credited with jobbing.
No. They were that stuff happened in the 1880s. I've read newspaper accounts of wrestling stuff from the 1880s where you can read the newspaper account and just go pro wrestling world champion, which means as much as, it was like you could tell that, even then it was all worked. And I think Frank Gotch, who, I think most of Frank Gotch's matches were worked up. Probably the Hackenschmidt matches were not, but, which is why they're so legendary. But, they were kind of farces in their own way. But, I think that the only real pro wrestling, consistently real pro wrestling that there's ever been is probably the stuff that's happened in the last 5 to 7 years with Pancras and Rings, realistically.
Mm-hmm.
That, that's the only organizations that have promoted mainly real. I mean, rings just in the last couple of years real matches, but they had some before. And Pancras, it's probably 90% real, and now I'm sure it's 100%.
You're talking about like UFC type competition?
It's similar. It's actually now they've evolved where they're very, very similar. At the beginning, it wasn't quite. It was a different set of rules, but it's real competition. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Okay. Very welcome.
Bye.
Okay. Let's go to. Is it Scott in Connecticut?
Yeah. How you guys doing?
Hey.
Doing really good.
How's it going, Jeff?
Hey, Scott, what's going on, man?
What'd you guys think of Raw?
Of Raw?
Yeah.
I thought Raw was awesome.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really good show.
Yeah, I thought it had 3 really good matches: the Benoit Guerrero and the main event. And then I also liked Christian and Devon.
What about Undertaker and I'm just teasing.
No,
You know what? That was good because it never hit the ring.
I purposely took a shower during that match, so I never got to see it. But I want to talk about how you guys are saying about when WCW shuts down, or if it does, how WWF would swoop up all this talent. And you guys are all saying that, with no competition, it's going to get to be a stale product. But when they have all these guys lined up like Steiner and Goldberg and Page, who they can put all these dream matches with, don't you think it's going to take a while for it to get stale?
Oh, yeah. No, for the short term, for the first 6 months to a year, it'll be really good. I've seen this model in action in 74 with roller derby, when there were 2 competing roller derby universes, and then one of them died, and then the other one got all of the good players, and they had these dream games. And for a while it was awesome, but somehow or other the lack of competition killed it all, and within, it was less than 2 years before the whole thing completely died. And I'm not saying the WF will die, but there will be this period, absolutely, for a while where it will be really, really good, but then the lack of competition will make it stale.
But the thing is, Dave, it'll only be good if it's booked to be good. I mean, we talked about this earlier in the show, too.
That's true, too.
If it's Scott Steiner coming into Barry Perry Saturn, or, Goldberg coming in and beating up Crash Holly, and that's as high as they go, then forget about it.
I really wonder how the mentality will be, though, because, for example, the Benoit thing. You had Benoit coming in as WCW champion, and even though he was under contract to WWF, there was still a WCW organization. So if this guy got some wins, it would be making another organization that actually existed legitimate. Whereas if WCW died, he would have all these guys under contract, and there would be no other promotion to legitimize. So you might as well just do whatever.
I don't think the mentality is any different, though, because just going back to that same model, the first thing that happened in that roller derby thing was that the promotion that lost, which was roller derby, their stars went into roller games, and the first thing they did was make sure that on every team the roller game stars were bigger stars than the roller derby stars, for that, even though they owned them all and roller derby was dead.
Yeah.
I've never seen interpromotion where the powerful promotion didn't dominate the interpromotional thing to where it never reached its potential. Even with New Japan, that knows how to do it. I mean, we just saw it this year with Kawada, on January 4th with Kawada and Saki. I mean, every one of us knew that Kawada needed to win that match again for a long term, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Are the WWF guys that stubborn, though, that they're going to say, I don't want to put over Goldberg, even though that could boost up the pay-per-view buys for our company,
It's not the guys. It's the guy who runs the company. And he's very stubborn.
And that in Vince's mind, and I don't think the fans' minds, but I mean in Vince's mind, if they come in and Scott Steiner beats Hunter on television the very next day if WCW shuts down, I think in Vince's mind that's him saying to the fans that all this time that I've been telling you that WCW is a lame product, I was wrong.
I mean, I'm not really talking about Scott Steiner because in my opinion, Scott Steiner in the last couple of years is he's getting Lex Luger-ish.
I think he tries as hard as he. I think he tries as hard as he can.
I mean, he used to be awesome. I mean, in the early '90s, I remember he used to be really good. But when he started bulking up, I think he bulked up to the point where he can't really move.
Oh, no question.
That's true, but the difference is Luger, I think, has the ability to move, and he does not.
Well, Luger's atrocious, but Scott Steiner's just he's got this. His look is perfect for a world champion, but his mic work is just, it seems like. I don't know. It just seems like he stutters and stuff. It's kind of like he doesn't like.
On phonics on Nitro.
Yeah, he says key words in the promo wrong that'll ruin the night. Like he'll say,
But it's funny.
And he'll be saying, you're going to fight him in a ladder match, and he'll say cage instead of ladder. Yeah. Just weird stuff like that, And I'm thinking when I'm talking about the guys that can really do something in WC, I'm thinking Goldberg basically only. You know,
if they let him, but if they book Goldberg wrong, I mean, we've all seen Goldberg's got to be so careful because he's not that great, but he can draw when he's booked well because of whatever reason. And it's a question: are they going to go in there? I mean, to book Goldberg great, you have to have him go in there and squash everybody in 2 minutes, and you have to have him squash, the top guys too. And I just don't know that they're going to go in there, Goldberg and Hunter, the month before Goldberg challenges Austin, and have Hunter do what he needs. I mean, he may.
What if you go slowly, though, like they did in WCW? Like you start off putting him in there like, mid card, and then he keeps beating guys, so it's almost like they have to put him in there with the top guys, And
that precludes everybody there laying down for that quick match.
But I mean, these guys, when it comes to like them having a job or not, it's not like they're going to care if they're losing to Goldberg, who like was on top.
It's not like I said again. It's not the guys.
Yeah.
It's not the guys. It's the guy who makes the decision. And is he going to go in there? And in the case of when you get to the top guys, no, I mean it's not the guys in the middle and all that because they're going to do what they're told because they have no choice, especially if there's no other organization. But when you get to the Undertaker level, it's not. It's like, is Vince going to allow Bill Goldberg to squash the Undertaker in 2 minutes?
Well, does he want money?
What?
Does he want money? I mean, that'll make him money.
He doesn't. That's the same thing we've had with every interpromotional. The exact same thing. Don't they want the money? Don't they want the money? But somehow ego gets involved with in the way of money and that whole thing of we have to prove that we were always better. I mean, why did Hogan never put Flair over? I mean, for money, for Hogan's money, for everyone's money, it would have been the best thing for a long term for a Hogan-Flair feud for Flair to actually win one. I'm not talking at the end when he actually did where Hogan put him over, but I mean, in the 94 feud and in the 91 feud, Hogan would not put him over. And the same, it was for Hogan's benefit to do it, but that ego thing gets involved.
And there's also locker room morale as well to take into account. I mean, if you're marching Bill Goldberg in, you can say, okay, we're going to put him over. We're going to put him over Taker. There's all those guys that have done house shows for the past 3 years that are close to getting to that level where they should be going over Taker, and then you bring someone in from the outside to go over Taker, and all those guys are like, oh well, that's my spot. What did I put all these guys over for all this time? Why did I go and bump on the road? Why did I make all my bookings?
Yeah.
And plus there's that mentality that where, like that the WWF has, we're the stars, we're the major leagues. How can you allow a minor leaguer to come in here and beat all of us without paying his dues? The whole thing with paying his dues. Look at Kurt Angle, just an example. Kurt Angle was an absolutely awesome performer, but when he got that belt and kept it, I mean, there were people whispering, hey, he's only been in the business for 2 years. He doesn't deserve it. And in fact,
to the point where he believed it. He was saying that in that conference call. He's like, I consider all these beatings I'm taking paying my dues. And it's like, I think that once you win the WWF title, you've pretty much paid your dues. But
so what about if WCW stops? Is WWF going to think about? I mean, if they expand their roster, they can expand their television too.
In what sense? More TV. I think that would be a big mistake.
I mean, that means that
and then they can't because there's not enough days of the week though. Their guys they're production people and everyone. They're all overrun with work. They're making too many mistakes now.
Yeah. I mean,
they can't add like a third show.
They could do it the way they used to do it, and pre-tape a lot of the shows. I mean, a lot of the shows they have on the weekend, the hour shows, basically just recap shows.
Yeah. I can't imagine them doing more like live TV. I mean, they can't basically add the third day of TV. I just don't see it. It's just be too hard on everyone.
Yeah.
The office people would never get work done. We do have 2 more people who did quit at their prime. That's from Chris, who says, I heard that Hulk Hogan said that he wants to be out of the business in about 3 years so he can walk away when he's still in his prime. And somebody else said that you forgot Steve McMichael. He walked away from WCW while he was still at his peak. So,
I don't think that was voluntary.
I don't think he even knows he left.
I think our problem is, we think of like peak as like, someone who's like a really good performer and he's at the top of his game and is really doing well, but that probably was the best that Mongo was going to do.
That's true. I guess technically that's right. I want to remind everyone, tomorrow on the show we're going to have Cody Monk of the Dallas Morning News. Also, tonight on HBO's On the Record, not to be confused with Off the Record, Vince McMahon will be on with Bob Costas. Jeff, you going to be watching that?
Nope, don't get HBO up here.
Oh, okay. And I don't get it either. I got some friends who are taping it, so I'll eventually see it. But anyway, hopefully we'll have a report up on the website on that thing. Brian, do you get HBO?
No.
Okay. Well, then none of us do. Okay. Let's see.
I get it.
You get, Al.
Hey, you can write a report for us.
All right.
Let us know. Tomorrow on the show, we'll be talking to Al about that thing.
You got it.
Thing. This is from Elliot Jenrad, who goes, I don't think you can name Kikuchi and Kobashi against Crawford and Furnace among the greatest tag team matches of all time ever because only 11 minutes of the match aired on television, and it was never released on commercial tape in its entirety. I would say the 11 minutes that aired were on par with any other 11-minute segment of any other wrestling match you'll ever see. It was pretty awesome. What was shown was incredible in terms of crowd heat and pure tag team wrestling, but it's impossible to say the match ranks among the best ever matches unless you've seen the entire match. And he goes, I would rank Hansen and DiBiase against Choshu and Yatsu from the All Japan Tag Team Tournament Finals in 1985 among with the 4 matches previously named. There are so many great matches that, like, when people ask the greatest match, I mean, I could go through and probably name, if I look to, like, match of the year things and start going, I remember that one, I remember that. There's so many of them. In fact, in that, what was it, the greatest matches of the decade and things like that they did on DeathValleyDriver.com, I was looking at that and it's like, how do you pick, like, one better than the other? These are all, like, really, really good. Let's see. This is for Jeff Marek. I listen to the Law every weekend. I know you were at Casey's restaurant on Monday night. What was the reaction from the crowd when Vince said he was going to deliver a Hollywood sex scene?
Same thing apparently is what happened on Monday night. Everyone sort of jaw dropped and it was kind of like, oh, not again. We didn't like it the first time, and how much worse can it get?
Okay, let's see what else we have here. Let's see. We're on the sale. This is someone who's suggesting that if the sale falls through and the things shut down, that Bischoff could start a company up, which very well may happen, but it also makes all the wrestlers free agents. There's as far as like basically he's saying like if that were to happen, do you think that there's actually a chance that let's say the sale goes through, WCW folds, that Bischoff and Fusion would start their own company from scratch? And I say yes, there is absolutely the chance that will happen. Let's see. I keep hearing comments about the prevalence of steroids in wrestling. Can a person achieve the look of some of the top WF superstars without the use of steroids?
With
depends
their
on which superstar. If you're talking about, you could absolutely look like Dean Malenko without taking steroids. No, I mean, but there's other guys. I mean, as far as some of the other guys with their road schedule, no. Some of the the real extreme muscular ones, even with great. I think about, I don't know who. Let's see, Jeff. Who would you say as far as like a guy who's of all the guys, everyone who comes on the show when we bring up steroids, they all talk about it like it happens and they all say they don't do it. Okay, but maybe I'm completely stupid. Okay, well I know that we talk about that all the time. Okay, but as far as like the one guy who I absolutely believe has never done steroids, and there's no reason I should believe him any more than anyone else, but I do. It goes also because he's an honest guy. It's Lance Storm.
Lance Storm's the only guy I can say that I believe 100% when he tells me he's never taken a steroid in his life.
I believe him too.
He's the only guy I know. Just from, I mean, I've been.
No, I would believe Mick Foley too, but
Okay, from like the guys that you'd look at their bodies and say, you know what, that guy's on the gas. I mean, he's
right.
The only guy. I mean, he's like actually, neurotic about the way he eats, how he lives, what he does. I mean, doesn't go into a bar, doesn't have any, dressing on his salad, like nothing. It's like everything. He's just like so fixated on having this like natural body. He says that, it helps him heal faster. It's a lot easier for him to watch his diet and get his sleep and sort of live a clean life, as opposed, going out and working the road really hard and compensating, for grogginess or pain with pills.
Well, the one thing as far as the sleep goes is, from people who I know that have been on and off steroids, is that it messes you up because you don't, it wires you and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that, he's right when it comes to like getting regular sleep and everything. Not being on it probably very beneficial. But I'd say like if you look at Lance Storm, I would say anyone who has a significantly more what I would call impressive physique than Lance Storm, I would say no way. If you get a guy up to the level of a Lance Storm, I would say Lance Storm is probably about, because Lance Storm has very, very good genetics. I mean, you can tell by, his hips and big shoulders and everything like that, big muscle bellies in his bicep and everything, that Lance Storm is pretty genetically gifted. And the fact is, for a guy who's on the road and everything, you can get a physique like Lance Storm with the right genetics and not taking steroids, because I think he's living proof of it. But when you get Pat, what?
It's not easy.
Oh, it's you got to do everything perfect, like Jeff just said. I mean, no dressing on your salad, getting the right food. You can't miss work. You can't miss workouts.
The point
is
just think about how many wrestlers that look somewhat like Lance Storm are really willing to do that and actually do that.
Almost none.
Probably not.
Well, that's why yeah. So yeah. I mean, it's obviously it's prevalent. Let's go to Nick in Florida. Nick.
I just wanted to talk for a moment about why that kid down here was actually charged with first-degree murder. There's more than one way to get a first-degree murder charge. It doesn't have to be premeditation. If you kill somebody while you're committing a felony, just sort of randomly, like you go and you pull a gun and you rob somebody and you shoot them and kill them as part of the robbery is a felony. Therefore, the murder or the killing that goes with it is always first-degree murder. The kid was charged with child abuse. Child abuse was the felony. So the fact that the victim of the child abuse died made it automatically first-degree murder. It didn't matter what his intentions were.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it like that for every state in the U.S., guys? Do you know?
I know it's like that in New York. I don't know about other states, but I think most of them have a similar law.
Because in Canada, I mean, it really needs to be premeditated. Like, you think about it, you stew about it for a day, and then you go and do it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Anything else, Nick, as far as that case?
Other than the fact that it's been all the news down here, and no one quite knows what to make of it.
Everyone that I talked to in Canada about this case is like, how can you charge a 14-year-old kid who was, I guess, 11 or 12 when he did this for first-degree murder? Like, how do you form a thought in your brain that you actually want to kill someone?
And again, the difference there is that they're confusing first-degree murder with premeditated murder.
Right.
It's considered first degree down here because you thought that you were going to go and commit some other crime. That's felony.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to Mitch in California. Mitch, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey.
I'm stoked for not calling in the last 5 minutes. Sorry I'm always rambling you guys on as you're trying to end the show.
Well, actually, we got plenty of time now. Well,
right on.
Go ahead.
One of the things I wanted to talk about was, Dave, I remember, like, in the late 80s, you had these great long series about, how to turn Ric Flair babyface. And I just kind of wanted to hear one of them because it's been a long time, and I don't totally remember, and the kind of people that I know don't remember either. And also, if you were booking kind of the top guys, right now for the WWF, how would you run it right now?
That is so complicated. I mean, it wasn't like I did that stuff off the top of my head. I mean, I would think I would think and think and I would think and think before I wrote. And with the stuff that's been going on in wrestling, I mean, so much of it has been stuff that just, the booking itself is not as important as it. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's the important issues in wrestling are like funding of companies and things like that, rather than. In those days, it just seemed like, you get the right angle with the right person in the right spot and you do business. Now, it's really harder because everyone's seen so many angles. Then, as long as you did a good angle, you could do it. Now, I don't know. Angles are a lot tougher to like actually make a difference in business. Now it's more. I mean, Cornette actually said it best. Before when he was running Smoky Mountain, it was angle-oriented. You could have big stars, but if you had the right angle, you would draw a bigger crowd. Now it's not angle-oriented, it's personality-oriented. If you have the right personality that's making the appearance at your show, that means more than actually peaking an angle.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, and another question is just, I remember hearing about, like, in the 80s, you would always get booking applications for the WWF and stuff like that, and what other offers did you get, and why didn't you? I
never have ever gotten a booking offer from the WWF.
Really?
Never once. No.
Well, you know how the rumors fly.
No, I mean, I never have. I'm not going to say it. But anyway, I never have, okay?
Okay.
I mean, there are things that have been said to me, but, I mean, to even say I have been asked by the WWF or by people in the WWF, like, ideas for people, or as far as for people who could help them at certain points, or even with them suggesting people, that might help them that I would know. But as far as like, I have never gotten an offer in that regard from WWF. No.
And I was also wondering, remember when Jeff Jarrett jumped back from WCW to WWF just a couple years ago? Probably more than that. Probably like, I think it was 97, I think. And he came out and he did a pretty good promo. Kind of that, that was kind of shooting on all the top guys, and I think he had like his hair slicked back, and I don't know, I was actually totally amped on it. And if they, I don't know, what do you think they could have done with him instead of sticking him to mid-cardville? I mean, I'm somewhat of a Jeff Jarrett fan.
They tried and they gave up.
They could.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tried. Jeff Jarrett talked, and Jeff Jarrett, when he came back, he talked his way into the idea that he was going to be a top guy, and obviously Vince paid him what at the time was pretty close to top guy money, because Vince was convinced too that it was, he's whatever age he was, like 30 years old, 13 years experience, whatever the numbers were. He was a veteran, but he was still young, and he had a decent physique, and he could talk, and all the experience, and he was good, a smart worker. But the problem was he didn't have main event charisma, and Vince tried, Vince gave up. And the only time it ever really worked, the only time it ever really worked in WWF with Jarrett was once when they put him with Deborah as the tag team with Owen. That was an effective tag team. And also at the very end when he was beating up women, which was the right thing at the right time that pretty much anyone would have gotten over doing just because of the misogynistic nature of the crowd.
Right. Yeah, I just put on Nitro just for a second the other night, and I have a hard time even trying to watch it because just seeing him and Flair sitting together, who are like, Flair obviously is my all-time favorite, and I just have a hard time watching him these days. And him and Jarrett together, and I just see Jarrett with so much potential. And I enjoyed Jarrett even in the when WCW really started taking a dive in the last year. And I don't know, it just really bummed me out, And I remember I think it was just before that pay-per-view where Austin, I think it was in North Carolina, Austin fought Foley for the first time. It was rumored that Flair was going to show up.
And, the Greensboro.
I don't know. I just kind of wish in my mind I have this movie or this book for Ric Flair's life, and I just wish that somehow it could end with him kind of on top. I mean, the last few years have just been really depressing to watch him.
I wish too. I wish a few years ago that he would have gone to the WWF, gotten one big run with Rock or Austin.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen.
I know.
He chose to stay. I mean, he fought. There was a period where he was fighting to get out of his contract.
Right. I remember that.
And then when push came to shove, he stayed.
Mm-hmm.
He spent $200,000 to get out of a contract that he voluntarily stayed. That he stayed because Bischoff talked him into staying at the end.
And at this point, there's no. I mean, how long is he contracted to? Or of course, if WCW folded, I mean, would WWF even have any interest in him? Or at this point, would he just be more like a commissioner type role?
I think they would hire him, but I cannot imagine them putting him on top. I really can't. I mean, as far as for a big-time program, I mean, maybe a program with Vince, but not with anybody else.
I know that there's interest. I mean, Vince and Ric Flair, have been friends for a number of years, and there has been talk about bringing him in before. I think the last thing that we heard was when the Radicals came in, they're dying for someone, to hold the stick for him. He was one of the names. Him and Arn, a couple of names were bandied about.
That would have been phenomenal. It's funny you bring up the Radicals because I feel like WCW is all based on factions, right? And they go quickly, and they I don't know, it's just always a faction. And right now, WWF is not really faction-based, and I got to say that one of my favorite times to watch wrestling was that summer where there was the Canadians, there was DX, and then there was the Nation. And I kind of miss it. I mean, WWF
I knew you were going to say that, Brian.
I know that sounds lame, but I mean, I enjoyed that. And when they had that street fight and stuff, I mean, I don't know, just for kind of camp value, I just thought I thought it was just kind of fun. And now, all the factions don't even materialize or last long. I mean, I remember just a few months back, if you guys remember, they had Big Show, Shane, and Chris Benoit and Angle as a faction for 2 weeks. And then where did that go?
Yeah, and they were going to throw Edge and Christian in there, yeah. A couple of questions here for Jeff. We knew we weren't going to get through the show without questions for Jeff on Wrestling with Shadows. Let me see, where we got them? Got two of them. Do you think... It's for you, Jeff. Do you think Shawn Michaels was crying because he had conspired to screw Brett, or he was crying because he was an unwitting participant in the screw job and thought he was going to be blamed?
I think it was a little bit of both. My gut feeling is that Shawn...
Well, it had to be one or the other.
Did he conspire or not?
I think that he did know about it, but I didn't know that he had to have been in on it. This is my gut feeling. Yeah, he had to have been in on it, but I don't think he knew how serious it was. And I think that it wasn't until the moment that the bell finally rang and they threw the title on him and told him to get to the back, and he saw...
And all hell was breaking loose.
That at that point that he knew the sort of the depth of the situation, and I think he kind of got scared.
That's probably... You know what? That's probably as best an explanation as I've ever heard on that. In that, because, when you're doing this thing, if you're involved in this to a very small degree, and let's just say he sort of was hinted, okay, this is what's going to happen, you really don't know it's going to turn into like this, the biggest news story of 20 years, if you know what I'm saying.
No, and then he gets backstage, and there's Undertaker pounding on Vince McMahon's door with 20 wrestlers behind him saying, "We demand an explanation, or we're all going to walk."
Yeah, everybody's saying they're going to quit. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're Shawn Michaels, and you're holding the title. Hey guys, what's going on?
It's like I was part of this, guys. Oh my God. The other question is like, whatever happened to all that footage that didn't make the movie from Montreal?
That's an excellent question. It's too bad that High Road Productions went out of business, because there was a ton of footage. And I mean, a lot of it I saw, and a lot of it I heard. They have a ton of audio from backstage, and it's amazing. And should really get in touch with Paul J to see if they could release that or somehow make that available. But the audio footage of Shawn sobbing and the audio footage of Undertaker banging on McMahon's door was really compelling and actually really frightening. But I mean, who knows? I mean, High Road Productions, went out of business shortly after the Owen movie.
Can you explain that? Because I think no one knows that story hardly. Because I barely had heard it. But explain basically what happened with High Road Productions. They did the Brett movie, the Owen movie. They were actually going to do a Goldberg movie as well. Yeah,
there was a couple movies they were talking about. I worked on I did the research and part of the writing for the Owen Hart movie. And then after I was talking with Sally Blake, and she said, "Yeah, we're really excited about this. We hope the Owen movie will do as well as the Wrestling with Shadows," which I kind of knew it wouldn't, because you didn't have that. I mean, you had a real, I had a real downer story at the same time, but it wouldn't grip as many people as Wrestling with Shadows did. And so they were planning on, I guess, because they went and talked to a lot of people in World Championship Wrestling. They talked to Hogan. They talked to Benoit while he was there, while they're doing the Owen movie, because WWF wouldn't allow High Road to do anything more with them after Wrestling with Shadows came out. And I guess they talked to Goldberg, and Goldberg was interested in doing something similar. And then obviously Hogan, once he saw the success of Wrestling with Shadows, said, "You know what? I got to get me one of these. Look what it's done for Brett." So I mean, right away Hogan was.
Look what it did for Brett. Hogan had to take the guy off TV the whole time that movie was on.
Yep.
So I mean, Hogan wanted a piece of that too, because he saw what an amazing piece of marketing this thing was for Bret Hart.
Yeah, he did see what an amazing piece it was, didn't he? Oh, my God. This is from Elliot Red, who goes, I was reading Luthez' book. He said he was the main event on the first show that did a $100,000 house. I was wondering what was the first show that did $1 million house. I would think that would be Ali and Inoki from 76 at Budokan. Yeah, at Budokan, because they had those super, super high ticket prices, like $2,500 or whatever it was at that time, or maybe $1,000 ringside. So I think that would be the first million as far as ever. As far as the States, first million would have been WrestleMania, the Hogan and Andre in '87.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we got here. Is Kurt Angle going to wrestle Benoit at WrestleMania? Jeff, this is actually for you, and you probably know better than me.
I heard that idea pitched around 2 weeks ago, but then I just got a revised sheet for the Air Canada show this weekend. They've got Angle in there with Billy Gunn.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
That will not be a WrestleMania match.
So fingers crossed that will not be a WrestleMania match. But I mean, I heard the name Benoit pitched around. But I mean, they've only got a couple weeks to shoot an angle that justifies this.
Yeah, they better. I don't know. I guess we'll try to find out, because I was under the impression the whole card was going to be finalized on Monday, and I'm going to try to find out what it is in the next couple of days.
I heard either Benoit with Angle or Benoit with Eddie Guerrero, but I guess they already got rid of Eddie Guerrero on Monday.
That's what it seemed like to me when I saw that that finish. I thought that they had made the decision to go with Benoit and Angle, especially because Angle's they didn't really program anyone else with Angle yet.
Yeah, Angle's got no one.
Yeah,
but then they wanted Jericho's got no one.
Jericho's going to go with Regal, I heard.
What's that?
Jericho will go with Regal, though.
You heard Regal? I heard Eddie Guerrero.
Jericho, well, they could do that. Jericho and Regal on Monday.
But they did something to set up Jericho and Eddie Guerrero, I think. They may have done that at SmackDown, yeah.
The week before, yeah.
It could be either one, yeah. See, this is a couple of, didn't Tom Zink leave and never come back? Yeah, that's because nobody, it's not the same thing.
We're talking voluntary here.
We're talking about someone, a tippy-top guy, just going like, I'm 35 years old and and I'm going to start declining, so I'm going to walk away. It's not someone who, for whatever reason, there was no job left to get. Not that Tom Zink couldn't have gotten a job working indies, which he could have done and he didn't want to, because he did walk away from that. But I mean, talking about, a guy like in the WWF main events, like let's say Shawn, had he not been injured, You know, like if he would have like walked away and you know, like after that WrestleMania, just go, I'm 33 years old, my body hurts. It's sort of like what he did with Sid.
Yeah,
remember that?
He lost a smile.
Yeah, but even then that was because of injuries, and he was back in 6 weeks, and all of a sudden his knees were amazing.
And his smile. Remember when he came back after he'd lost his smile, and he came back and he was cutting his promo with Vince, and he gets in the ring. The first thing he does is climb to the top rope, do a backflip, land on his feet.
Oh my God! I remember watching that, going like, I wouldn't allow that to do that on my knees, and I didn't go and I wasn't crying that, you know, I'll never be able to wrestle again 6 weeks ago.
Yep.
He didn't even have him taped, and then like the whole thing, he went to the. I remember like one of the wrestlers like actually called me like about a week after the smile thing, right? It was one of the WF guys, and it wasn't one who hated him, by the way. It was, but anyway, and they just go, you know, he went to Andrews, and I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, he's not getting surgery. And it's like half the guys in this company need surgery on their knees. Andrews examined him. He goes, you know, your knees are damaged. You know, it's like, well, of course. You know, he's been wrestling for 15 years now, or whatever it was. And it's like, but you don't need surgery. And they're just like going like, oh my God, what a con that was. Let's see, this from Donald Cleveland, who goes, about the Lionel Tate issue. The boy does not deserve life. However, his mother who was charged with Tiffany's care but was sleeping does. How she took the responsibility to care for an infant and then left the actual care to the minor is an issue here. Why wasn't she prosecuted? How could she sleep through the screaming? Or, and this is the real question, did she? Did she reject the plea to absolve her own guilt? I think she did. The whole thing is terrible. Jailed the mother for 3 years and the boy for 3 with treatment. Don't know. She was never charged. So that's all I can say. Let's go to Richard in Toronto. Richard.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hey there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jeff?
Hey, Richard.
Yeah, okay. Why did you say the thing about the WOW pay-per-view that they didn't have any ring psychology? Give me an example of that.
Give you an example of the lack of ring psychology?
Yeah, but because you called it one of the worst pay-per-views, Dan Logransky called it Plan 9 Unleashed. So why was it called, why did you say there was no ring philosophy? They're only been in the thing for 8 months. You know, they're not experienced people, you know. They're not the indie-type wrestlers. How do you expect them to learn so quickly?
What are you on pay-per-view for then?
Why do you have pay-per-view? Because I never see it. How come we never see a Japanese women wrestling?
That's enough. Let's go to Al.
What'd you cut off for?
He was good.
Hi, Dave, Jeff, and Brian.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing?
Here in St. Louis, where we don't have a UPN affiliate, the WB shows SmackDown on Saturday, and whenever the Blues are playing, they air it at 7 o'clock the same time the XFL is going on. I'd like to know, does the WWF know about that?
I'm sure they do, but they can't, you know, they can't control things. I think that
whenever
they would probably
the Blues aren't playing?
The Blues, that's the hockey team.
Okay. That totally confused me. It's like
I keep forgetting that you don't know anything about sports.
Wait, I could play the Blues. Oh, I'm sorry. That's
what I was talking about.
Yeah. And sometimes during the SmackDown show, they've got like the XFL commercials going on, and I'm like, what's the point of this? Because I can't watch, you know, since I don't have picture-in-picture on my TV, I can't watch the two shows at the same time.
Well, you know, he goes head up with the UPN XFL too.
Oh, okay.
You know,
and kills it.
Yeah, pretty much. No, not by that much. He's only doing 1.9, so.
Okay. Yeah, and my other question is, I think like the best time WCW had like was this past summer when Lance Storm went on a run to win all the titles. Well, what did you think about that angle?
I thought it was pretty good in getting Lance over, and obviously Kevin Nash did too. So, so that was it for Lance after that happened.
It was funny. The story goes, you know, like Kevin Nash kind of walked to the building that day and said, "So, what are we doing today?" It's like, well, you're burying Lance Storm. And I think he's got a clean tap. I think it was like 4 or 5, maybe even as much as 6 months until he got a clean tap again on television.
Oh, I think that's a shame because I mean, in my personal opinion, I think they should do that run again because like all the websites said that that was probably like the best time WCW had because I remember the reviews just shot up when Lance Storm went on that run.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that it was even a good time. Yeah, I wouldn't say it was necessarily a good time, but they were effective in getting him over for a little while until they decided that it was working too well and kind of killed it. You know what was so funny was, like, afterwards, people trying to, because it was like, here's this guy who's finally, breaking through a little bit, and then they just kill him dead. And then the justification was, like, well, he's going to get his comeback on Nash, and I'm just thinking, like, yes, I'm sure. And it made him more of a star because he got a rub from Nash, and it's like, yeah. Did they really? It's just like, oh,
just like those 70s job guys got the rubs from being in there with the big A-level talent.
Yeah.
Who was booking the shows when Lance was on that run?
Johnny Ace.
I think that was Russo, wasn't it?
I think it was Johnny Ace because they did that one tournament when he won the U.S. title. Remember they had the one-night tournament?
Yeah, that was Johnny Ace's tournament.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one last question. How long do you think it will be before Bischoff realizes that Hogan and Nash are killing his company?
Maybe when it dies a second time?
I think at some level he must know.
I think he knows as Booker Nash ruined it, but I don't know. I think as a performer, I think that he's still with this idea that they are stars because they were stars. And the problem with this business is it's an entertainment business where, stardom is weird and fleeting. And someone who's a superstar 2 years ago may be absolutely dead 2 years later. And in fact, then they may be two prime cases of that.
I understand. Okay, well, thanks, guys. Thank you a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. We are totally out of time, and I want to thank Jeff for joining us, and Jeff will be talking to you again on Saturday and Sunday. Jeff, real quick, who do you have as guest this weekend?
Saturday we've got China from the World Wrestling Federation.
Unbelievable!
Which will be interesting, and Sunday we've got Gene Kiniski.
Wow. I want to tell you that I am very curious about both those guests.
China won't be live because I think the callers will be merciless with her. We're doing a pre-tape of that on Friday morning.
Yeah. Oh, that's too bad. But Kiniski is going to be fun. I'm saying that very sarcastically, too. Tomorrow we're going to have Cody Monk on, and actually we don't have a guest on Friday now. And hopefully we'll find out a little bit more about all that, and we will see you, and hopefully more about the sale as well. We'll see you all tomorrow at 5.